This is the knee here. And the thing that's important is that, notice the femur comes down, and then this is the tibia. And if you were to run a line straight up from the tibia, notice that it would go up here because there's an angle here. That angle is called the carrying angle, or the valgus. And in humans, that's a 9-degree angle approximately, whereas you look at a gorilla, it's 0, chimp is 0. In other words, gorillas and chimps have straight legs. Humans are knock-kneed. Our femurs converge to our knees. You may think, bad idea, but it's a good idea. It keeps our feet together. You see, if our legs were straight, they'd be as far apart as our hips. So in women, they'd be, a little further yet because they have bigger hips for accommodating childbirth. And when you lift your left foot, you would tend to fall that way. And when you lift your right foot, you would fall this way. Now, you could prevent it. All you do is when you lift your right foot, throw your weight over the left. When you lift your left foot, throw your weight over the right. I will demonstrate. This is the way you walk. Ever see anything walk like this? Apes and academics, that's it. Those two. Now, I'm not picking on the academics. I can remember when I couldn't even spell academic, and now I are one. But anyway, apes, like gorillas and chimps, have straight legs. Humans have this 9-degree angle, and Lucy has a 15-degree angle. So evolutionists have used this to argue that, you see, Lucy was becoming adapted to walking. In fact, was indeed walking as we do, without having to throw the weight of the body from side to side in a perfectly good left-right stride, just the way someone would walk down the streets of Long Island or something like that, right? Now, what kind of questions should we be asking? What we should be asking is, well, that's interesting, but are there any living apes that have a high carrying angle? And absolutely. The orangutan has a 9-degree angle. The spider monkey has a 9-degree angle. What's the take-home lesson? A carrying angle does not necessarily mean a creature is becoming upright, walking on 2 legs. What are these animals doing with that carrying angle? They are walking on limbs in a tree like a tight wire walker. They have their arms up here and an upper limb. They're walking on the lower. And if I were to give instructions to a tight wire walker, I would say, try not to walk with your feet apart like this. Keep them together. So it's not evidence in itself that nobody believes the orangutan or spider monkey are on the verge of becoming human and doing ballet and things like that. And Stern and Sussman came to the same conclusions. That the overall structure of the knee is compatible with a significant amount of tree-like dwelling. Well, let's jump up to Discover magazine of 1996. I showed you the feet from that before. Absolutely human feet, though we know better now. But look at the hands. Is this not interesting? That's not what we saw in the mannequin in the St. Louis Zoo. These puppies are meat hooks. Highly curved fingers. That's what we want. That reflects the curvature that Stern and Sussman saw. But notice they didn't do it with the feet. They don't dare, because the feet must fit the Laetoli footprint. It's the best evidence we have that an ape-like creature walked just as we do. You know what it is? It's a problem just like the wicked stepsisters in the Cinderella story. They want to get those feet into that glass slipper, and they're going to try to get them into the glass slipper even though they don't fit. But they finally gave in on the hands. The other thing that's interesting is look at the hips. Those are what we call ape hips. What's the difference between ape hips and human hips? Here's chimp hips. The iliac blade, that's the bone that's under your belt here, goes from side to side. The iliac blades stick out like this on an ape. And on a human, they come forward. I kind of liken it to a steering yoke on an airplane. You got the shaft in the middle where the spinal column is, and you got the handles here. And so this is quite different from this, and this is important. Why? Because there's a muscle that goes from this bone down the outside of the leg to here, right in this area here, called the gluteus medius. It's under the gluteus maximus, which you're setting on now. The gluteus medius is, if anything, more important than the gluteus maximus, even though it's smaller. When you lift your left leg, your left hip should drop, because this is an articulation. Think of a doll that's just got a hinge there. And when you lift your right leg, your right hip should drop. It doesn't, because when you lift your right leg, the gluteus medius contracts, squeezes here and keeps this from happening. And when you lift your left leg, the right gluteus medius contracts, keeps it from falling. Apes have a gluteus medius too. It goes down the backside. And apes have a posture like this. Never mind the ape man like so. They have a posture like this. Their problem is falling on their face, and the gluteus medius helps to keep them from falling forward. What does an ape do when it walks then? Same thing as it does with the straight leg. Without the gluteus medius, has to throw the weight over the planted foot. You're back to the wobble again. Now here's your problem. They know Lucy made the Laetoli footprints. The Laetoli footprints are identical to modern man and have the same stride, but sadly the feet aren't the right shape to fit the footprints. To add insult to injury, the hips would not allow that kind of walking. What will the solution be? Well, in most fields of science, you'd say, a really bad speculation we've got here, let's bag it and move on to something else. But in evolution, there are other solutions. Notice Stern and Sussman said, the marked resemblance of Lucy's hip to the chimp is equally obvious. So this pelvis is like a chimp. Just a few years ago on television, the PBS Nova series, they had Dr. Owen Lovejoy on, who's a famous human evolutionist, and he was lamenting the fact that Lucy has ape hips, and that with ape hips, she couldn't walk like a human, but we know she did. So what's the solution? You are not going to believe what you're about to see. What you're about to see is science. Get it started here.
The ape that stood up, it was a revolutionary idea. We needed Owen Lovejoy's expertise again, because the evidence wasn't quite adding up. The knee looked